Hey all, welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'm Darren, I'm your host, and today I've got a special guest, Mr. Andy Eising of JVR Industries. And JVR does commercial chamber sealers, and they also have the VAC 100, and he's here to talk about chamber sealing. I'll be right back with Andy Eising.
Smoking, grilling, getting hot and hotter, sous vide and chilling from fire and water.
Hey all, I want to introduce you to a company I just started working with, Fresh Jack's Organic Spices out of Jacksonville, Florida. They're a small, family-run company that's fast-growing. I've tried a bunch of their different seasoning blends and spices, and I can tell you they're all fresh, all organic. None of them contain artificial flavors or sweeteners. None of them have anti-caking agents or preservatives. They all taste like they were just made for you yesterday. Check them out, guys. They're on Amazon in the link below. They have different sample packs, different blends. Like I said, they also have the individual seasonings and spices as well. Fresh Jack's Organic Spices. Check them out, guys. I love them. Welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I am Darren. I am your host, of course. I want to welcome back, welcome a guest that I've been wanting to get on for a while. I think you guys are going to find this interesting. He is Andy Eising, and he is from JVR Industries. And if you've looked at my website or my Facebook groups, you'll know that I use the JVR VAC 100 chamber vacuum sealer, and I really love it. It's a great product, and JVR has been around a while in the vacuum sealing business. And I wanted to get Andy on here because I've been getting a lot of views, a lot of questions, a lot of people wanting to find out more about vacuum sealers. They're getting a lot more popular. So, Andy, welcome to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us where you are, who you are, and where you're from.
All right. Thanks, Darren. I'm Andy Eising, German name. JVR Industries. We've been in business since 1972. I'm from Buffalo, New York. I have two kids, a 1 and a 3-year-old. And we've been here in Buffalo our whole lives, born and raised. My parents are actually, my father, more specifically, is the one that has been working at JVR for 30 some years. He's the vice president, and that's kind of how I got involved with it. We'll go, into that a little bit more later. But yeah, lovely area. Welcome people to visit us at any time. And we do vacuum packaging, equipment, and supplies, and we've been specializing in it for over 45 years.
So you're in the home of the chicken wing,
Our chicken wing. Large chicken wings and snow.
I told you earlier that I grew up not too far from where you live. I'm right over in between Rochester and Syracuse, right on Lake Ontario. So I'm well aware of lake effect snow. You get it a lot more because you get it from Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. You get it from both sides.
Yes,
so you get a lot of snow during the winter, that's for sure. But yeah, that's just in the summertime. It's a gorgeous area. You're right across from Niagara Falls. We used to go there all the time for vacation. My family did. So a lot to do there in southern Ontario and that whole area with all the wineries. So it's a really great area to live, except for the winter when it gets some snowy.
Yeah, 4 or 5 feet dumps of snow all at one time, which is oddly enough, and funny, I guess. The one time I went out of town for a week was when we got our 7 feet of snow. So my wife, Rachel, was stuck at home snow blowing and taking care of all that. So she'll never let me hear the end of that. So needless to say, I cannot go out of town anymore when there's that much snow.
Yeah, I left there when I was like 15. So I've been in Florida ever since. And I like to go back and visit in the summertime, but even in the summer, it gets down to the 50s and 40s at night. So it's not, down here, it's 50s and 40s is our winter. So I don't think I'd ever move back there. If I did, it would be just like for the summertime and have a house down in the south, like some people do, and have a house up there during the summertime or springtime. So it's beautiful up there in the fall and spring too. So
yeah, it would be hard to do your grilling.
Yeah,
those up here in the middle of winter, that would be interesting.
That's for sure. But so I want to kind of talk about, so you kind of led into it, your dad was the one that kind of got you into JVR, and he's been there for over 30 years. So let's kind of skip that then. So that's kind of how you got into JVR. So how long has JVR been in business?
Yep, 1972 is when it was established. JVR stands for John Victor Radzwan. He's the owner, the sole owner of JVR Industries. So my dad came around in, I want to say it was the late 70s, right before the 80s, and he kind of started up just working. It was a small local service company. We basically just did sales and service in our local markets, so like a lot of the grocery store chains, doing primarily a lot of service on like Hollymatic patty machines. We did do some chambers in those early years, but it wasn't until we started importing a line of high quality equipment out of Germany called the Lakevac line, which is no longer in existence. That's when things started to take off, and a dealer network they started to build up, and my dad kind of headed that up as far as building up relationships with a number of guys across the country, distributing this line of equipment out of Germany. So it was at the time really the first relatively affordable machine, because back then everything out of Europe was pretty affordable. That was made out of stainless steel, all stainless steel. All the machines before that were primarily aluminum based and corroded, and there was a lot of issues with that. So they were one of the first to come out with a stainless steel machine. So that was a big thing. That was the big deal back in the day.
Yeah. So it's from the beginning, it's been strictly wholesale or commercial servicing businesses. It really wasn't a retail operation at all, correct?
Yep. No, we never really got into retail. Never had a retail type facility. It was all commercially based, B2B. And yeah, we definitely changed that a little bit over these past, 6 months primarily, but past year. But yeah, that was always our kind of our base.
Well, yeah, because for the longest time it was kind of out of touch. The price points and everything were really out of the regular Joe's or home users' hands. They had the food savers and seal meals that were cheap plastic, that they could afford, but they got a bad rep because they just never lasted very long or worked very good. So, it just, but in the last few years with some of the things that have been going on with, sous vide cooking and just the way technology has advanced, that's one of the things I want to talk about later on is some of the stuff that with all these new advances with technology, things have gotten cheaper and smaller and better and higher quality and with a less price. So it looks like you guys are now starting to look into the retail market, which, the first entry you guys had is the VAC 100, which I really love. And, for what it is and compared to what else is out there, I think it's one of the better in between. It's great for a home user, but it's also great if you're semi-commercial where you process a lot of food for, if you're a hunter or you have a small market or something like that. It's a really great tool as well. So let's talk about what got them involved in trying to do retail.
Yeah. So we, over the years, we've always done vacuum packaging, primarily even chamber machines, because there's other forms of vacuum packaging, but chambers was always our base and our focus. And probably going on about 10 years or so now ago, we brought in, we imported some machines that we were looking at when a lot of the Asian manufacturers were starting to develop and create and build chamber machines. Well, we kind of dabbled in it a little bit. We brought some in just to kind of test them out, just to see where they were at the time. Because one thing, full disclosure, full honesty, our company, JVR Industries, we do not pretend that we are a manufacturer. We don't manufacture anything. One of the slogans of John Radzwan was, we don't make anything, we just make things better. So what we've always focused on is taking products that a lot of times we see the potential in and really focusing, getting them out in distribution, supporting them well, because that's usually the biggest downfall with any machine, whether it's, a $20,000, $30,000 chamber machine or that, $500 to $700, $800 chamber machine. All of those, they just need support. At the end of the day, someone needs to be backing it, or else it's just going to fall flat on its face. So we find those opportunities and we introduce them to the market. Well, again, going back about 10 years, we did dabble. We did bring some stuff, different items in and different machines when the Asian markets started to get involved with low cost options. And we did not see, we did a lot of testing in house. We found some machines were catching fire, just not good quality pumps that were failing, a lot of issues. So we definitely put that on the back burner, did not pursue it at all at that time, kind of see the trends and how things get improved upon over the years. So I'd say probably the last 3 years, I've been looking into definitely a lower cost option of something that I really love, that we could fall in love with, that we could put our name on and say that this machine is worth buying and spending the money on. And the last thing we want to do is ruin our reputation. So we found this machine that we are branded as the VAC 100. We are the direct importers of it. We fully stand behind it 100%. We are working directly with the manufacturer to make improvements and changes, which we always welcome suggestions from customers. If you have a suggestion of something that you'd like to see on the machine, we can't guarantee that everything's going to be implemented, but at the same time, if we see it to be beneficial, we're already coming out with our first generation change, which isn't going to be a major revamp, but there are going to be some setting changes and a few things that we've already looked at as being, improvements. So with that being said, we really think we found a winner on this unit. What we saw, and the reason we got into it and knew it was the right time, is we saw a drastic downtick on our small entry level commercial type chamber. When I say commercial, I'm saying that we can kind of, the way I use the word commercial is going to be different than some of our competitors will use the word commercial. Commercial, I refer to as a machine that's got a Bush vacuum pump in it. And with anyone that knows vacuum packaging, Bush is the industry standard when it comes to commercial vacuum chamber machines. Any machine that is built out of Europe or built in the US, built anywhere else around the world, that is at the $1,000 minimum, I'm talking bare minimum, $1,000 plus, is going to need to have a Bush vacuum pump in it. Most machines, well, I can guarantee any machine $1,000 or under will not have a Bush vacuum pump in it. And Bush was actually the one that first, Carl Bush, I believe was his name. He was the one that very first started the vacuum chamber machine back in like the 60s. So he introduced it to the world market. And that's kind of the big difference between what I consider commercial. And then we also will say that the VAC 100 is a commercial duty unit, but it's a difference between, using a machine 2-3 hours a day to using a machine 8 hours a day every day of the week for 20 years straight. And that's the difference.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's why I don't really want to say it's a total commercial, quality, but it's something where if you're a small business and you're doing it, 10 or 20 times a day, but if you're sitting there nonstop, it's not something that's going to be in a factory or in a warehouse or something that's going to get nonstop usage every day. But, and I guess since that's what JVR concentrated on for most of their, existence, is commercial quality, things that are going to last, things that are built, that you guys are there to support it, but you're not putting junk into these businesses' hands that you're going to have to be called every other day and go, hey, this thing keeps breaking down, come get it. I guess that's why you look at it a little different on the retail side, where most companies will just grab any old cheap, they'll go on Alibaba and just rebadge something out of China and stick their name on it. And not just in the vacuum sealer market. I'm talking about a lot of different markets and electronics, and even on the cookers, on the barbecue grills. You could go on Alibaba and see about 10 different grills that you'll see in Walmart, and they're all different names, because that's all they do is they buy a big boatload of them, stick their names on them, and resell them. So, but it looks like you guys do a lot more research, even though you are using other people's products. You still have more say in how they can change it and fix it and make it the way you want it. But I think a lot of people don't understand that, even with like VacMaster. VacMaster doesn't make any of their products. They just stick their VacMaster name on it. But they do have some control over how the manufacturers put those together. They can make some demands because they are a big company with a big name, that they want to make sure that the stuff that they're putting out there, is going to live up to their name. But they don't make any products. They just take everything and sell it, and they're more of a go-between, but they do have some say on how it's put out there. I don't think a lot of people know that.
Yeah, that's how, even big giant companies that we think of that are out there are doing the same thing. Some of them obviously own their own factories overseas, but there's a lot of them that it's all about branding. Branding is almost completely separate. Usually the companies that are really good at making things are not the ones that are good at branding and selling it. So a lot of times those are two separate entities.
Yeah, I think about 90% of the vacuum sealers you'll see on Amazon, mostly the cheaper ones, are all just made in some factory in China and somebody just stuck their name on it. And a lot of times it's just the Chinese company itself sticking their name on it and setting it out there as cheap as they can. And, it's kind of hard to look through a lot of this. And I think that's why I'm getting a lot more questions and a lot more people are asking me, and I'm doing these reviews on stuff on vacuum sealers. I was really surprised. I started doing just some reviews on vacuum sealers just because it was part of my sous vide barbecue thing. And they took off more than some of my other stuff. So I said, well, I might as well start doing some more of this. So, and doing some more reviews and showing people how to use them. So it's been really popular. And I think that's because people don't know, and they go to Amazon or some other place and they see all these different brands and all these different prices and they have no clue on what they're looking at. So I think that's one of the things I want to talk about, the different types of vacuum sealers that are out there. Now, you said that you guys deal mostly with just chamber sealers. So
yeah, primarily, that was our base and our core was vacuum chamber type sealers. But even just in the vacuum chamber realm, you've got, your tabletop and what, I would classify, now we're coming out with an even lower level, but an entry level chamber for like a home user or small commercial would be what I would group the VAC 100 and a lot of the VAC Masters. And I group Avid Armor, but now we're coming out with these like $400 options that are kind of in that same range. But that's like an entry level tabletop. But then you've got like your commercial tabletops that usually will start minimum usually at around 15, $2,000. And then they'll go up from there. But then you get into single chambers. A single chamber is what we consider anything that's got like a wheel around like base to it, so it doesn't sit on a table. And those can get seal bars 26, 28 inches long. And then when it comes to commercial level, the focus and what everyone is always striving to get when it comes to chamber machines is a swing lid or a double chamber machine. And that's basically two chambers side by side that has a common lid that will swing back and forth, so that as you're loading the one side with your product across the bars, the other side's vacuuming. So, when you use your vacuum sealer at home, obviously time is not, critical. Or nearly as critical, but you're sitting there waiting, 40, 50 seconds for it to seal the bag. Well, double chambers allow you to bounce back and forth from left to right, and you're constantly working. The operator's constantly loading and keeping up with the machine. So, and then even from there, you get into, automatic lid transfers. There's other things, but to speed up the time, bigger vacuum pumps you put in a machine to bring your cycle times down. But then we also do get into roll stock packaging, which is even higher up in the commercial space, which is if you go to a lot of grocery stores now, they're packaging, if you see it like in a bulk pack where it's all vacuum sealed in individual packages. I know Wegmans, they're a big chain in our area, and that's how everything is sealed in their meat department. That's done in roll stock. So we do sell those machines that do that. We recondition equipment and do the vacuum pumps. We rebuild them and then sell the materials. So we do a lot in the materials too, whether it's the plastic pouches or the film that's used on a roll stock machine. Other than that, you've got obviously your external vacuum type machines that we try to stay away from. Just it's not our niche of the market. But we do have the embossed bags, like for customers that do reach out to us for those. And then you also have like nozzle type sealers, which are more of a commercial machine with commercial pumps and stuff that allow you to use a standard bag. You don't need to use an embossed bag. It physically has a stainless steel nozzle that goes into the pouch that pulls a vacuum externally and then removes the nozzle and the seal bar comes down. So it doesn't require that pattern, that embossment in order to seal.
I actually seen there's a retail model out there from some company. I want to say it's in China or Thailand or something. They have one of those. And I can't remember what the name of the product is, but there's one out there on Amazon. And I know there's a company somewhere like in Texas or somewhere that makes those on a commercial basis where, it's just got the little steel thing that, shoots into the bag, sucks it out, and then it seals it, pulls that out. And you can have moisture because the moisture squirts out the back, so it doesn't get into the pump somehow. So, but I've seen one of those and it's like about $100 on Amazon, but I don't know how long that thing's going to last either because it's not built very, I try to stay away from the really cheap plastic stuff that I know is not going to last long because usually their seal strips are, not made really well. And, A lot of people, when they break, it's the seal bar or the seal strip that goes out, and they could probably fix it if they wanted to, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense after a while. But so let's talk about the different types of vacuum sealers. So we went a little bit. What is the difference between a chamber sealer and a external or a channel type vacuum sealer? What's the difference in the final product?
Yeah, so chamber sealer is first of all going to give you a much stronger vacuum because it's creating like a perfect atmosphere within that chamber. So as long as your gaskets are intact, you can close that lid and it's pulling a vacuum into a chamber. Now, there's many advantages to doing it this way. One, you're able to kind of create that perfectly sealed chamber and pull a vacuum where you don't have to be concerned about the bag being laid across an external bar where now you're closing it and basically it's just being pinched off by a couple pieces of rubber, which doesn't give you nearly as much of a pressure and also a pinch point as a chamber would. Because once a chamber pulls a vacuum, atmospheric, not to get into too much, atmospheric pressure is 14.7 pounds. So we're being pushed down on at 14.7 pounds per square inch just by standing here. If you're at sea level, well, you pull a vacuum and you're getting really close to that zero mark. You never hit perfect zero, but you get real close to that. So that's the amount of pressure that lid is now being held down when it's under vacuum. So it's a very tight seal. And what you do now is you create an atmosphere inside that chamber that is equal inside the bag as it is outside the bag. So most customers, when they see a chamber machine for the first time with a clear lid where they can actually see inside what's going on, they're surprised that, during the vacuum cycle, nothing's happening. They're just watching it and it doesn't look like anything's going on. And that's because, it's pulling vacuum equally around the product. And it isn't until the seal bar comes up or down, usually down on a tabletop machine, that it seals the bag. And then once it introduces the outside air back into the chamber and repressurizes, equalizes, that's when you'll see the product slam down or the bag slam down and pull tight. So what this is great for, again, a lot of people go to chambers when they're doing liquids because there's no suction effect. You're not pulling liquids out, pushing liquids in. There's no movement of the product. It's also great if you're looking just to get the optimal seal and optimal vacuum inside the bag. From our tests, we've found what level of vacuum you need to achieve in order to eliminate frostbite or freezer burn, not frostbite, freezer burn inside of when you go to freeze your products. And usually it's like equates to be like a 99.85%. And those levels aren't even achievable on your home use food saver. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get close to those levels and greatly improve it. But if you're really looking for optimal, life within a freezer, you want to be able to take that product out a year later and have it be as fresh and, as the day you put it in, then you really need to get down to those real low levels of vacuum. So there's many reasons why like those embossed, like the external ones can't get to those levels. A lot of it's because you're trying to pack everything into a very small unit. They usually have dry, very small vacuum pumps that are dry style that don't use any sort of oil. The oil is really important in a vacuum pump in order to create a perfect seal within the cylinder. The oil actually helps close the gap between the cylinder, the piston that's inside there, and the sidewall of the pump. So without that oil, you can never get that. You can never close up that gap and get it, perfect. There's always going to be a little bit of gap inside those pumps. So, but yeah, so and biggest difference between chamber and emboss is going to be the bag itself and obviously the cost, and that's what we always try to tell people. So if you're buying one roll of emboss bags at a time, you're using those over a couple months, it's going to be pretty hard to justify a chamber machine for anybody. But if you're someone that's buying cases of emboss bags and you're going through quite a few, or you're processing deer or your own meat, then you definitely might see the advantage of, going up to a chamber type machine. You'll see a significant savings just in the bag pricing alone.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I try to tell people. It all depends on how you're going to use it. I mean, I'll get people all the time, and all my groups will just ask, what should I get? And it's like, well, how often are you going to use it? Are you only going to use it to do, a couple sous vide cooks a week, or are you going to use it to, all your food that if you're going to go buy bulk food at Costco and freeze a bunch of meat, you might want something a little bit more heavy duty. You might want to step up to a chamber sealer if you're going to be using it a lot. But if you're only going to use it once or twice a week, or 2 or 3 times a week, it's going to take a lot to justify it, because there is a bag savings, and then a lot of people will say, the Boss bags are like, 12 cents a piece and the chamber bags are like 3 cents a piece. But it's going to take you a lot of bags if you're only using it, 3 or 4 times a week to make up that difference. But then again, they're getting cheaper now. And that's one of the things too, like when I talk about with the technology and some of the things that are being offered. I mean, I know that like even with the VAC 100, they're starting to use, more of a plastics or the heavy duty plastics inside the chamber instead of stainless steel. So that reduces some of the cost and some of the weight. And they're starting to develop them, a little bit lower profile, so they don't take up as much room. I mean, do you see some of these manufacturers are starting to customize and make them this way because they can see a growing home market for these?
Yeah, definitely. They know the price point that they need to hit these machines at, get them at to really mass produce, but also to make them acceptable to the home user and at the price point that they're looking to get. I would not be surprised if in the next few years here you're getting to that like $199 price point. Everything is in volume. I mean, it's no secret. You look at some of the components around your kitchen. I mean, if you look at what goes into like a microwave, I mean, there's quite a few components in a microwave that now they're able to build them and get them out there for $20 to $40. I mean, it's unbelievable. Televisions, I mean, all that stuff. It's electronics. The biggest cost, that they're able to bring down more and more is going to be the cost of the actual vacuum pump itself, and that's where the significant savings. As soon as you swap out like a Bush pump for any other pump, it's going to bring down that cost greatly, and that's where I think we're going to keep seeing those trends and those costs come down more and more. I've seen some, again, dry type pumps that are used on some of the other, even cheaper chamber machines that are literally, I mean, they weigh a pound or two and they're very small and compact. So once they figure that all out and how to cram it into a small cavity, they'll get the price point down much more than it is right now. It's funny, like 15 years ago, my dad, I was sitting with him the other day and he showed me a brochure because I was kind of joking around with them about, because surprisingly, a lot of people have been telling me that they're putting these machines in their kitchens, which is great, but I don't have room in my kitchen to put one, but some people obviously do. And years ago, a German company came out with a machine that was designed and marketed towards being a built-in unit for in your like kitchen island. I mean,
they have those now. If you Miele has those, and they actually sell it with they have a steam oven. They're like $4 or $5 grand, maybe even more than that. But it's and they're from Germany, or Europe. I think it's Germany. But they make a steam oven that has like sous vide mode, but they have one that's got the built-in chamber sealer.
Okay.
It's like a drawer that pulls out and you stick it in there and you close the drawer and it vacuums it up and then you stick it in your oven. So yeah, it's out there. It's just now they got to start driving the price down to get it.
Right now it's someone in a Sharp refrigerator. Sharp made a fridge that had a slot right in the front door of it was like a side-by-side right in the front door of the fridge. It was more of like an embossed style sealer, but you would slide the bag into the slot in the fridge and would vacuum seal right there. So they're making it more mainstream, and I think a lot of it is a lot of it's definitely cost savings. I mean, throwing food waste is just, it's always been high in the U.S. and everywhere. I mean, it's not just a United States problem, but a lot of, food is wasted and thrown out, and, it's just ways of preserving and keeping that stuff fresher longer so that you can continue to use it. So I think in the long term, the biggest detriment to vacuum packaging, at least in this country, is going to be the plastic waste that unfortunately goes on with it. I think there's hope for our industry. We're going to see where things go, but we're already trying to look into more green options because we just know that we're trying to get ahead of that trend a little bit, and getting into more packaging materials that are recyclable and environmentally friendly, because it's the writing's on the wall there as far as regulation goes. So in our local area, they banned plastic bags in New York, so you can't even get a plastic bag at the grocery store anymore. So on the commercial level, at least, I see that coming eventually when it comes to packaging material.
I have another company that they're Vesta Precision out of Washington. They've mentioned something about trying to develop or have their manufacturer that they buy stuff from develop a biodegradable type chamber, not chamber sealer bag, but just a channel type bag to see if they can do that. I know that they're trying to do that with some of these silicone. Some of these companies try to get these silicone type bags with the little hand pumps. Actually, I got one right here.
Like a reusable bag.
Yeah, they're like these little reusable bags, and they sell this little hand pump that pumps out from the little hole here. And they're really not that good because you can see I used this once and you can't clean them out. I scrubbed this thing out. So they're not really, they got a great idea, but they're just not very practical because they get dirty really quick and you can't clean them out. And then they get all gummed up. And you end up throwing them out after 2 or 3 uses anyway. But I know that there's, with innovation, people are always going to come up with something. So I can see that. The more people start using it, the more people start getting more conscious about it. Somebody's going to come up with something to do that.
Hey, y'all, it's Darren, and today I want to talk about the Inkbird Wi-Fi Rainproof 4 Pro barbecue thermometer that's brand new. The IBB Q4T has a rechargeable battery that can last up to 26 hours once it's fully charged, and you can monitor it from pretty much anywhere with the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi that it uses. It comes with the brand new Inkbird Pro app that you can monitor your meat and the temperature of the grill from pretty much anywhere, from your house, anywhere in the house, from your office, from the store, driving down the street. Inkbird makes some really awesome barbecue products, and this one is no exception. Check it out below with the link to Amazon. You can use the code that's listed for $30 off, making it only $70. Check out Inkbird and all their products. Now back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast.
So right now, since you guys sell mostly on the commercial side, how much of your business is the actual machines and how much is the bags itself?
Yeah, right now it's about 60-40 as far as equipment, favoring the equipment side of things. So we do definitely do a fair amount of pouch sales. If you group in like our film sales, which is like on the roll stock side, which we also do right at around 50-50 if you kind of group that all together. So pretty much every machine sale we get, we will, on the commercial side, we definitely are more, not, I wouldn't say competitive, but we go after that business a little bit greater. We know there's a lot of options when it comes to like the consumer side. So we do encourage customers when they, buy a VAC 100 to, pick up some supplies, and they're always happy with it. But that market is very competitive, again, with Amazon and anywhere you can buy a pack of bags. And we're not ones to say that you have to use our bags with our machine. We know that there's, a bunch of places and they're all the same. So we more our bags. Again, a little bit of, insider information, 99.9% of the bags in the U.S. Are coming out of Asia and China. So, we do have capabilities of making our own products in our facility. We do have my dad's a partner with a guy up in Toronto that does manufacturing. So we convert. We can take the master roll material and actually make it into custom sizes of bags. Again, for strictly, for the most part, commercial accounts. But yeah, it's definitely a very good side of the business for us because it's residual. You work hard to get that machine sale. You get the machine sale, and we're selling quality equipment. That means you're not selling a whole lot of parts for them, and the bag is what the bag business and the pouch business is what keeps on coming. So
yeah, I think Xerox did that, for many years. When they were selling copiers, their big moneymaker was selling the paper. If you had bought a Xerox copier and they had your Xerox rep, he would sell you the paper. You had other people selling paper too, but that's what they try to do. And Food Saver for the longest time, they made most of their money on the bags. It wasn't it wasn't the actual unit itself. They'd sell you a unit for 60, 70, $80. And then, those bags were getting really expensive after a while. But, so yeah, and that's one of the big complaints that people will say is, I pay more for the bags than I do for the sealer. But, so since we're talking about bags, I know that I've been getting, we talked about this a little earlier, but I've been getting a lot of questions on the different types of bags that are out there on both the commercial side and I guess more on they're starting to come out more on the retail side, or people are using them. The Mylar type bags where they're like the potato chip bags, I guess, and stuff like that. Is that what the Mylar is?
Yeah. So Mylar, if you use the word Mylar, most people will immediately think of like that silver metallic type bag. Mylar is actually like the Kleenex of, it's called PET is the plastic, and I'm not going to try to pronounce the chemical name.
Yeah. I don't blame you.
Yeah, I'll butcher that. But it's a commonly used polymer that's used in making bags for various different purposes. But, DuPont trademarked the Mylar name, and that's basically their form of PET that is, optimized for certain applications. But then when you metallicize it, so basically they spray a metal type substance onto the plastic, that is what we kind of are usually referring to as Mylar. That's silver PET material. It has PET has really good capability or properties. It's strong. It has good barrier properties. So it's commonly used in lamination of bags because you can also print to it. So that's a lot of times why they use it. But when we refer to Mylar, a lot of times it's a silver bag. More often than not, it's the thicker silver bags. They, by their nature, by tradition, have always had a high barrier property to them. So they do not allow very low transmission rates of oxygen and moisture. And because of that, metallicized layer also protects UV lights from affecting the product, so any light exposure. So that's what we normally refer to as Mylar. And I'd say most common 4 mil, 5 mil thick, and then a lot of times you can get some 6 and 7 mil Mylar bags. Those can be sealed on. There's nothing really different in regards to Mylar from any other vacuum bag because they still use the same sealing layer. It's polyethylene to seal the bag to itself. So it can be done on any chamber machine. The difference is some chamber machines just can't get hot enough. And the only reason a lot of times is the transformer that heats up the wire. The combination of the transformer and the wire itself just can't handle it. And even if it could handle it, it may only do it for a few cycles, and then you're going to be overheating or burning out the wires. So on the more commercial machines, the transformers for them are 2-3 times the size. So they're meant to put out a lot of power to that wire, and they're also designed so that they can cool off in between cycles. They can keep doing that cycle after cycle.
And they're built to last longer. So like something like the VAC 100 can do it, but you don't want to do it very often or on a continuous type basis.
The biggest thing is allowing plenty of time in between. If you're doing a really thick bag, so I've tested up to 6 mil. I may have even done a 7 mil bag, and it's sealed beautifully. You're not pulling it apart or anything like that. But I would not, profess that you could do that for 4 hours straight with those long seal times and not have, overheating issues with the wire. Because what happens every time these wires, the resistant type wires, and when you send electricity to them, it changes the resistance of the wire, which is what effectively causes them to heat up. And every single cycle, that wire expands and contracts. So if you could actually look at the end where it wraps around the seal bar, it'll actually lengthen. And usually the seal bars will have like springs or some sort of spring-loaded device on the end or something that'll take up the slack in the wire. Because if it wasn't there, then it would kink. A lot of times you'd bend right where that comes out because it would kind of create like slack. So because of that, you definitely want to make sure you're not running those wires too hot because that wire is going to be expanding more than it really should be. And it's never going to have a chance to cool off. And then that's what causes your wires to break. 95% of the time, the wire is going to break right on the end where it wraps around and goes into the bar. So.
And that's what usually happens on these cheaper, channel type sealers. Anyway, people use them, they abuse them. A $50 thing that's not really made to do that, and the seal, wire breaks, and then they can't do anything else with it. So it's either that or they try to vacuum seal up, liquids, and it gets in the pump and gums that up. So.
Yep. And I think a lot of them are using them just for sealers too, which is a nice feature of those food savers because unlike a chamber sealer, food savers, you just have to close the jaws and it can seal because the jaws are what's keeping it closed. A lot of those models. Chambers, you need to create vacuum in order to seal the bag. So those you can't just close the lid and immediately seal unless you're physically holding the lid down. But most chamber sealers, in order to seal it, the way the bar lifts up and puts pressure is through little cylinders that those operate on the pressure differential inside the chamber versus outside the chamber. So if you've got a chamber machine and you run like a really short vacuum time, you might see that your seal doesn't look that great. If you run and a lot of these machines don't allow you to run too short of a cycle or a vacuum time. But if you had one that could adjust the time and you only ran like 2 or 3 seconds of vacuum and then immediately go into seal, you're going to notice that your seal is going to be really spotty and poor. And that's because you're not giving the chamber enough vacuum in order to create a strong differential between the chamber and then the cylinder. And that's what gives you that pressure to seal the bag. And anyways, I'm a nerd when it comes in
Well, that's good, because I don't think a lot of people will know that, and you won't find that in a manual somewhere,
Yeah.
So that's good to know, and that's why people listen to some of these stuff that I spout out, because they learn something they might not learn by going online or looking in the manual. But that's another thing I want to talk about in the chamber sealers, and one of the things that people freak out, when they first get one. The first thing they want to do, what's the first thing they want to do with it? Well, they want to put a bag of water in there and watch it boil.
Yeah.
Because that's the first thing they do is they go, I want to watch this water boil. And why is the reason the water is boiling? Just so you can clear that up.
Yeah. So water will boil in a vacuum because by creating vacuum, you're dropping the pressure. When you drop the pressure, it lowers the boiling point. So you could jump on Amazon and look at boiling points at different pressures of water, and you could see and even do a little experiment that at your sea level, so you can find out where your sea level is, and then also what pressure you're pulling down to, which pressure can be millibar readings. There's a bunch of different readings. Millibar and torr is what we typically use in the vacuum world. But based on those factors, and the temperature of the water, it'll boil at a set temperature. So as pressure drops, the boiling point will drop. So I think it's 30 at perfect or just above perfect vacuum. You can boil like 38 or 40 degree water, essentially, where if you're not getting down to that level, you're never going to get a cold liquid to ever boil, but you can get there and that's one actually good way to test how good of a vacuum your chamber machine truly is getting is, put water in there at a set temperature, and then based on that chart, see if it's really able to boil at that set temperature, because gauges on these machines aren't accurate, just so everyone knows. They're all calibrated, and it's whoever set the calibration decided to set it at. So it's not the Bible by any means as far as
it's like the thermometer in your oven. It's not, you can set it to 350, and 9 times out of 10 it's probably not 350. So most of the places in the oven. So
it is physically boiling. It's not heating up. The liquid's not changing temperature, but it is physically boiling. It's just boiling.
It's turning to water vapor. It's not getting hotter. So that's one of the things people get confused on. They think that if they stick their hand in there, then they're going to get burnt. Well, it's not that. It's the water is just turning to vapor because of the atmospheric pressure. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I want to ask on the commercial customers that maybe do liquids or wet items a lot in their chamber sealers, what's their best way of getting it to not boil, to have an issue with the seal or something like that? Do they chill the liquid first? Do they do a shorter run time? What's the best way? Because I've had this come up the other day with a friend of mine. We were kind of talking about that, and he, thinks you got to get it pretty cold instead of just running a shorter vacuum. What is it? I know both of them can achieve the same thing, but which one's better?
Yeah, definitely getting the liquid cold is better, because you're ultimately able to get the vacuum level down more, because again, if you get it close to that freezing point, just above freezing, obviously you don't want to freeze the liquid in some situation, but getting it close to that point, then you could still pull roughly 99% vacuum without it getting to that boiling point. The other option a lot on the commercial side, and I'm sure again the technology they'll come out with this more on the entry level, but using vacuum sensors on machines that actually don't just run off a simple time. They actually look at the level of vacuum, and they'll switch to seal once that level is reached. So most simple chamber machines, you set it to 30 seconds or whatever the time setting is, it'll time out and then it'll go into seal. Whereas if you know at what pressure that product, let's say you're putting it in at 45 degrees, the product is consistently sitting at 45, you could look at the boiling point of liquid at 45. And then you can set your pressure at that level or just above that level, so it's never actually getting to that point, and it'll consistently do that. It'll actually adjust the time automatically to hit that level each time. So on the commercial side, that capability is on most machines.
Cool. Now, what about using these filler plates? Does that have anything to do with if I did a shorter time on the vacuum since it's pulling less air, or does it create a vacuum sooner because it's pulling less air because of the filler plates?
Yeah, filler plates, commercial level, and again, everywhere, they're very popular to use. They actually, there was a company that, Supervac, I think they're out of, not Germany, but over in Europe, they came out with a system on their larger chamber machines that would have a balloon essentially in the lid of the chamber. So as it was pulling vacuum, it would actually fill the void inside the chamber, so it would pull vacuum quicker. So the more you can fill the chamber with any solid object, and that's why the filler boards are always going to be a non-porous, dense item. You're not going to find a filler board made out of wood or anything like that, or would you want to? But they're always going to be some sort of dense plastic that displaces air, so you're no longer pulling as much air out in order to achieve the same result. So using filler boards is always great. General rule of thumb for people, just as an FYI, putting your product at the halfway point. So if you're doing a 2-inch high product, you want your filler boards ideally set about an inch below the seal bar to give you the nicest, flat surface for the bag to lay across. So the higher the product, the less likely you're going to be using any filler boards or fewer. But yeah, no, they're very useful to have. They'll speed up the cycle and give you a better vacuum.
Yeah, and speeding up the cycle is important when you want less abuse on your pump and all that. So, and I know that the dry pumps are not really good for the commercial process, or use, but for some of these smaller, more affordable chambers that are coming out for home users, like I said, if they're using it 10, 12 times a week, I don't think it's really going to make too much of a difference. It's definitely not going to last as long and all that. But, I think if somebody's just using it, for occasionally, like I said, I think it gets them into a chamber sealer, and even though, they're still $400 and $300 on the smaller ones, but it's still a lot more affordable than the $1,200, $1,500 ones, or even the JV, the VAC 100 at $800. So it's, it gets somebody that maybe would have not bought one to get one and realize how much they really love it. So
yeah. What I'd recommend is if you can't afford to buy an oil pump from a reputable company or someone that you've heard of, don't buy a dry type pump, but at least buy it from someone that
a company that's going to back it up instead of the ones that are on eBay. I mean, we had somebody in the Facebook group the other day, had that issue with the Mylar bags, and we're trying to explain to her that it was you bought a cheap $300 one on eBay that nobody's backing. So
and who knows, 90%, 95% might be fine. So it's a roll of the dice. It always is with those machines.
Right.
Again, years ago when we brought them in, we brought in like 10 of a very similar model machine, and I think 6 of the 10 worked fine. I've actually got one in my garage that I still tinker with from time to time just to use. But yeah, a lot of them, pumps burned out on them, controls acted up. And so if you get a good one, again, great. If not, then you're kind of stuck.
Well, I've been really satisfied with the VAC 100. I know a couple other people that bought them from my suggestion of love them as well. So to me, it's the perfect in between. Like I said, it's that it does everything I want it to do. It's got the option with the canisters and all that, and I can program it. I can program different settings. So if I want to, have one where I know I need a longer, time, vacuum time, I can just press the button, or I want a shorter vacuum time. That's what I do with my locals. I set the programming, on that. So instead of doing 30 seconds, I'll maybe go 25 seconds and have both my filler plates in and just use that program. So I like the fact that one's programmable and it can do some other things, and it's low profile. It's not taking up my whole entire, counter space, but it is still, they are still, they do still take up space compared to a channel type sealer. That's for sure. So, because they are a chamber, you got to have a chamber no matter how you look at it.
Yeah. A couple things I did bring up, and this goes for pretty much any chamber machine. I was going to do up a video with the VAC 100 just to show customers that they could do this, but you can run, if you want to run a longer product or something larger, as long as it fits across the seal bar, you can run it on any chamber machine. You can literally use an embossed bag like you would on your food saver, and then basically use your chamber machine essentially as a food saver. So just keep that in mind. I had a guy ask the other day, and when I told him that, he's like, "Oh, that's fantastic." I was like, "Yeah, if you want to run doing a fillet or something, long, fish, and you want to run a really long bag, you can still do that." And I'll be doing up a video to show people exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you just put the bag inside and have the product outside, and it pulls the vacuum.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then with the VAC 100, you can tilt it. What's nice, you can tilt it forward. It's really meant for servicing, but you can tilt it forward. And if you're doing a long product that has a lot of liquid, you can actually lay it in a way that the bag would hang off, almost like hang off the table, if you're picturing that.
right. Yeah, that's what I would normally do with a channel sealer.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you try to avoid the liquid getting up there, and then a lot of those have a pulse function now, so it makes it a little easier to do liquids because you can just hit the pulse and go chut, 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 until it gets right up there. But so I'm pulling up the website here just so people can know what we're talking about. JVR Inc. is the website, and you have a lot of commercial type products on there because that's what you guys specialized in. But it kind of shows you the different. You can go there and look at some of the equipment, and you can see some of these monsters that you're talking about. But you can also go into the shop now and check out the VAC 100, JVR VAC 100 right there. People see that. And if you use the code Fire and Water, you will be able to get $100 off. They are back in stock. They were out of stock for a while. We sold out of these for people. I started telling people about them, and people started really buying them up. So I think we established that you can sell these things on a retail basis and that there's a market for them. So now you've got all the parts and stuff like that in there as well. So I'm glad you guys have decided to continue selling these, because I think, like I said, it's about the perfect. I've had a vac master. I've had some of the commercial channel sealers. I've had some of the Avid Armors, and to me, I like this setup because it's low profile, but the chamber's big enough. It's got a lot of options as far as the presets and all that you can do, and it's got a lot of power, and I really like it. So I think it's perfect for people like me that do go buy bulk foods and vacuum pack it. Plus, I do a lot of sous vide cooking, and I do a lot of briskets and pork butts where I need the bigger bags and stuff like that. So I can use it with the channel type ones as well. So you can check them out. And like I said, you do have all the replacement parts for it as well. So that now if somehow they need a new seal bar or something like that, or gaskets or the oil, you can just order it from them as well. So plenty of bags. I know you got bags on there, and just make sure you guys check it out. Check out the VAC 100 as well. And I know, do you guys still include the canister there?
Yep. Yeah. Canister comes with the machine. You get one of those.
I know when I got mine, I had the canister, the attachment, and the thing for your wine stopper, which is pretty convenient if you're a wino like me and you open bottles of wine and leave them. You want to get all that oxygen out so it doesn't deteriorate your wine. You can put that little vacuum stopper on there and get all the oxygen out, and it'll sit there and stay just as long as you want. So, but
yeah, one thing we like to stress is, we actually highly encourage customers to call us. We're a very personal company when it comes to that. I know a lot of things are online now, and actually the online sales has been fantastic. It's great seeing machines sell without even talking to people, and it stuns me sometimes that someone spends that amount of money without wanting to talk to someone. But I mean, it doesn't bother us. But at the same time, if you get a machine, I had a guy call, or actually send an email on Saturday that he got his VAC 100, and it looks like it just took a little extra brunt on the shipping. So he called and he let us know that there was a little bit of damage to it, and I ended up calling him up, Saturday morning just to follow up with him and just find out what was going on. And we took care of him and ended up sending another unit just to replace, because we don't like dealing with that. But call us. I mean, don't ever get upset, or we are the most service-oriented company. That's how we've been successful for as long as we have. It's because we don't let anyone, go have a bad experience. I mean, we'll make right by any situation. So again, call us. We're open 8:30 to 5 Monday through Friday. But I'll be honest, if you email Andrew at JVR Inc., I check I can't say anyone else in the company does that, but my dad I know does. He does as well. He's constantly talking to distributors over the weekend. But if it's an emergency, if you're just sending me an email to say, thanks, I got the machine, I might not get back to you, but if it's something important that needs to be addressed, I will make sure we get in touch with you.
Now, you got some other products you're going to start releasing soon? You said, correct?
Yeah, well, attachments for the VAC 100. I mean, we do have a chamber that we were trying to source out and make some modifications to get it to work that would allow you to do jars, canning jars. And I think this is probably the one that we're going to be doing here, which I don't know if you can see in the video, but
Yeah.
but basically it allows you to do like your quart, your pint, your half gallon, up to half gallon canning jars in there. Whatever you can fit in there, you pull a vacuum on, 3-piece lid style mason jar, and you'll be able to vacuum seal mason jars, multiple jars at a time. Basically, you do the same thing with any chamber machine inside the chamber. The only problem is most chamber machines don't have a big enough chamber to do anything more than some. You could go up to a quart, but most of them you're at a pint to maybe a quart at most. So.
Yeah, and the VAC 100 is low profile, so it's not really deep. I mean, so you could put the 6-inch ones, I think, in there, but if you want any bigger, you need something like that. So, is there any other chamber sealers that you're coming out with? I thought you were coming out with another, maybe a lower end one.
We're not going any lower than the VAC 100 at this time. We do have that VAC 110 model, which you won't find on our website just yet. We're offering it just through distributors. It's very similar in profile to some of the other chambers that are out there, but it is an alternative. We're offering it more for customers that are looking for just a little bit more height, because there are a few situations where guys are looking for just a little bit more chamber height, and they're not so concerned with low profile design. And there is one model I have in mind. It's actually the VAC 100, just a little bit narrower. It would only have, I think, like a 10-inch seal bar instead of a 12. We're just working out the details on that. I can't guarantee that we're going to be introducing that one or not, but we're going to be bringing at least a few in to sample them and see if there's going to be a market for it at a slightly lower price point. But our biggest concern is we really don't want to bring our price down to a point where we can't justify or provide the service that we provide.
No, yeah, definitely.
And at some point,
you're not looking for mass market, that's for sure. You don't want to be in Walmarts and Home Depots and all that or whatever.
Usually companies live and die by the Walmarts of the world, so we learn to stay out of that.
So there's no plans to offer any kind of channel vacs. You're strictly going to stay with the chambers.
Yeah, the channel. Yeah, we were. So maybe that's where you're going. Yeah, no, I was testing out channel vacs. We got so busy with the VAC 100 and other, because actually the commercial side. We have been blessed during this whole pandemic as far as just the business and stuff like that goes. I know there's a lot of companies out there that are hurting right now, and it's terrible in New York with all the shutdowns. It's really hurting a lot of guys. We have not felt that, and we've been just trying to kind of stay, with
keep your head above water. Yeah, keep your heads above water.
Well, not in a bad way, but in a way of just making sure we're able to maintain our accounts and keep everyone happy and support them all. So that was something that we were definitely looking towards when we had some time, and I'm sure we'll revisit that at some point, but not in a rush to do so at this point.
Gotcha. Well, I want to thank you for being on, Andy. Anything else you want to talk about? What's coming up? What's going on? Where do you see these type of products going in the future? Do you think they're going to get more affordable? There's going to be more opportunities, more companies getting involved in it. How do you see it?
Yeah, there's always companies popping up. I mean, they come and go, and I don't see that changing at all. I don't see. I mean, we joke around about this. The VAC 100. I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years there's a machine that looks identical to the VAC 100 that's going to be starting to sell, and maybe at a lower price point. And who knows? It might even be from the same source that we have, because that's how that market is. So I do see the prices continuing to come down. I don't know what the bottom line price point will be for the chamber machines. I would say in the $200 to $300 range, but it's still not a machine that is going to be in every home in America. There's a lot of people that do not just because of price, but even like the food savers, they're affordable by now. But everyone just doesn't want to take that extra step to seal it up. And I mean, I've got access to unlimited chamber machines and all that, and I'll be the first to admit that I don't seal everything that goes in the fridge, or that we still end up throwing away food. But so technology wise, I mean, these machines I talked to my dad from back in the 70s when they started selling them. They haven't changed a whole lot. Yes, the reliability in a lot of aspects have changed, but controls and different things, sizes, they definitely made these things smaller.
But they still just vacuum seal food.
They vacuum seal food. I try not to overcomplicate it. People, I mean, it's like a 3-4 step process, and they're very simple. I think if anything, the innovation will come more and more on like the commercial, high end commercial side of things as far as speed. That's what they're always looking for, is how to make things faster. But I think the home side, it'll be making them smaller, making them cheaper. That's it as far as innovation goes. And there are some other things and like the restaurant side of things where they track seal temperatures, and there's traceability when it comes to sealing on that side, because there's a lot of regulation when it comes to that on like the commercial packaging side. But I don't think we'll ever need to get to that point on the home use side.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest reasons this whole market, and especially on the the channel side and somewhat on the chamber side, is the fact that a lot of people are using sous vide cooking now, and usually you can do it in a Ziploc bag and others, but it makes it a whole lot easier if you got some kind of vacuum sealer. So that's where I see the big demand that's spurted in the last 6 years or so, and all this different competition getting involved in it, and it's kind of forced some of these manufacturers to try to offer some of these more affordable chamber sealers as well. So but all right, Andy, I'll let you go. I really appreciate you being on, and maybe I'll have you on again when we got some other things to talk about. But a lot of good information on channel sealers and vacuum sealing in general and what you guys do. But so check out jvrinc.com and check out the VAC 100. But just check out all the stuff. You can see what they offer. I know that most people aren't going to be interested in those big machines, but hey, they're fun to look at.
Yeah.
Just I'd like to play with one of those big ones one time, see if I can vacuum like a whole cow at once or something.
Come up and visit us. Yeah, we have one customer does primal cuts. They're like 40 pounds. He throws in a chamber machine of just like sides of beef. And so yeah, if you want to ever come up and pay us a visit, you're more than welcome to play around as long as you want.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks again, Andy. Thanks for following the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I will see you on the next episode. Well, thanks again for listening to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I want to thank Andy Eising of JVR Industries again for talking about vacuum sealers with me. Make sure you follow the Fire and Water Cooking Facebook group, page, YouTube channel, podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure you check out the new Fire and Water Cooking book on Amazon. Make sure you check out JVR Industries in the link below as well. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next Fire and Water Cooking Podcast.